is and speak to Rajneesh Narula. He's a professor of international business regulation at the University of Reading's Henley Business School, and he's joining us from London. Professor Narula, good to speak with you. So, what impact do you think this appointment will have on the World Trade Organization?
Well, I think it's a wonderful decision by the WTO. First, as you say, the first female director general and also the first African, which is good news. And she's a very competent economist, and she's known for building bridges. I think that's what we really need at this point in time, because WTO has been torn by internal strife between the rich countries and the poor countries, plus, as you mentioned, the China-US battle, which is, of course, headed towards the WTO, and has brought everything in the WTO to a standstill. Donald Trump blocked the appointments of new judges to the various appeal courts and the judiciary processes that happen in the WTO. And so there's been a slowdown in all activity for the last few years. So she's going to be very important, and it's going to be her primary task to build bridges in the next few years.
And of course, she worked at Gavi, an organisation which distributes vaccines to poorer nations. That's going to be invaluable experience right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that in the background that of the pandemic and the change in leadership in the U.S., we're going to see a number of significant challenges. But it is worth mentioning that there's a limit to what she can do. I know she has great plans to bring up the issues of climate change and obviously the issue of vaccinations and the recovery post-pandemic. But her hands are somewhat tied. Because it's going to take a lot of politicking to bring the poorer countries to the table to make any major changes to the organization.
And what kind of form will that politicking take? I can sense a sense of sort of reticence in trying to be too sort of positive about the World Trade Organization from you, Professor. What will it take to make the body do the job that it's meant to do?
Well, I think that there are two sides. If you take the rich countries and the poor countries, they come with different objectives. The developing countries are primarily focused on creating jobs, creating investment, building up their economies. And the developed countries, of course, are more concerned about rich country problems, labor standards, climate change, pollution, and so on. And they are pushing their big multinationals and about investment. They're interested in supporting the big multinationals that are mostly from the rich countries. And the poor countries are focused on growth. So there's a question as to what extent can you grow and be good for the environment and do the right things and allow investment. So the two sides come from fundamentally different points of view. So any big new changes in the way in which the organization runs will require people to make compromises, which are going to be very difficult given the current economic downturn that we're going through because of the pandemic.
And Professor Narula, then, you mentioned that there will be obviously dealing with richer and poorer countries. I wonder if you could sort of tell us your thoughts on how she'll impact the economies of countries like Nigeria, of course, where she is from, and whether her appointment will be a boost for Nigeria more broadly.
Well, I don't necessarily think so. The Nigerian economy is suffering from a number of blows, and the Nigerian economy has been mired in a dependence on petroleum for the last 40 or 50 years, pretty much ever since its independence. And this is something that these are very volatile markets. So Nigeria isn't necessarily going to benefit from her presence, but what it will do is, of course, raise questions that are important for sub-Saharan African countries that are perhaps not as common in other parts of the world. So that is, in fact, the good news in general for sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Professor Rajneesh Narula from the University of Reading, thank you for your time, sir.